Hello, here is Muho back from Osaka, and I'm gonna return to a question that I talked about last week. Buddhism and anti-natalism. Buddhism teaches that life is suffering and we have to find the cause of the suffering and find freedom from suffering. What that means is open to discussion. Some people say that after many lifetimes you will finally become an arhat and reach nirvana. Others say you have to find nirvana right inside samsara. You have to accept suffering and realize actually there's nobody who suffers. There's suffering, okay, but who's suffering? Who suffers? There's nobody who suffers. The moment you realize in that precise moment you're actually free from suffering. Whatever, Buddhism often says that life is suffering, or at least not satisfactory. You're never completely happy, and that's why many of us actually start with the practice. And anti-natalists say that it would have been best if we had never been born in the first place. All the problems we do have because we were born. We cannot change that fact, but at least we can take care that we don't have children ourselves. We don't want to cause the same suffering for others. And the person who asked the question last week was surprised that not more Buddhists promote anti-natalism. How come that there are Buddhists who are not anti-natalists and actually do have children? Or at least, for example, Theravada monks, they don't have children themselves. But I can't recall encountering any Theravada monk who would have said that laypersons should stop having children. But why? Why? And last week I said, well, one reason could be that if laypersons also would stop having children, humanity would die out. Which from a Buddhist perspective at first isn't a problem. Without humanity, less suffering. But how about the other life forms? How about the animals? How about the people in hell? How about the angry demons or the people in heaven who eventually will fall down into lower realms? How can they ever encounter Buddhism if there's not the possibility to be born as a human being? So actually, from that perspective, if you believe in that, I personally don't believe in it, but if you believe in that literally, human beings would have the moral responsibility to, first of all, make sure that humanity continues to exist, and before eventually the last person is saved and humanity can die out, all of the other life forms need to disappear first. So humanity would have the moral responsibility to make sure that all of the animals and maybe also plants and other life forms die out before humanity dies out. So actually you could say that we're already heading in a good direction in that sense, by destroying nature first. And eventually that will mean that we all also make sure that humanity cannot exist anymore. And I think that argument, although I don't believe in reincarnation, but that would also apply to anti-natalism. If Bennett's argument of asymmetry, that it's always preferable morally to not have children towards having children, because by not having children you're doing something good by avoiding the pain, and you're not doing bad by preventing joy. You're always doing something good, while if you're having children it's kind of a gamble. That's Bennett's asymmetry argument. I think the same argument also applies to all kinds of animals, cats, dogs and all other animals that we have. Probably there are dogs and cats whose lives is more enjoyable and others whose life is more suffering. But if Benita is right, it would also mean that it's always preferable for a dog or a cat or a cow or a tiger or an elephant not to be born. And because animals don't do philosophy, they will probably never realize that. So if we as human beings have a moral responsibility to not have children, first we would have a moral responsibility to castrate all animals and make sure that they don't procreate. Because if humanity dies out, it might be good for nature, but the fact that there's nature and animals is bad, according to anti-natalism, at least as I understand it. I don't see why Benita's argument is only true for humans. And having the whales and having dolphins and having all kind of other life forms should be something good. At least according to Buddhism, whales also suffer, dolphins suffer, just as human beings suffer. So if anti-natalism is true, we would, as we are actually doing right now, would first have to make sure that all of the other life forms die out, and then we could also die out, and everything would be fine. But as I said in the beginning, actually people like myself, and I think I'm not the only one, a lot of Zen Buddhists have found peace inside samsara. So Buddhists like myself don't say you have to avoid suffering at all costs. You have to minimize the amount of individuals in the universe, because less individuals mean less suffering. It's rather that there is no owner of the suffering, and the moment you realize that, there's no problem. There's no problem. I don't see a problem with having kids. Of course, there's always the possibility that they will curse me at some point. Why did you have me? Why did you have me? But there's the hope. There's the hope that just as I myself, they will find peace inside the unsatisfactory of life. And I know it's possible. I know it's possible. But again, if anti-natalism is true, then from my point of view, and I don't believe it's true, I believe it's false, but let's suppose it's true, then it should be true for animals and plants as well. So then rather than making sure that humanity dies out, or at least decrease the amount of human beings to prevent climate change and to allow nature to recover and allow the whales to procrastinate, that would be strange, wouldn't it? We would want to make sure that the whales die out and everything dies out on the planet until we finally die out. And if there's only inorganic matter left in the universe, there's no more pain. That would be the ideal for an anti-natalist, wouldn't it? So, in a way, we're heading in the right direction from an anti-natalist point of view, aren't we? Thank you for the question. Thank you for watching. See you. Bye.